Hello everyone, the Vern here from Cinema Recall. Like most other podcasters out there, I used to worry about finding a good hosting site that will allow me to post episodes without worrying about space or my bank account. Well, with Anchor, I no longer have those worries. With Anchor, they have all the great tools that make podcasting very easy, not only on a desktop, but on your smartphone as well. Plus, they will do the work to get your show on multiple podcast players such as Spotify, Stitcher, Podchaser, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, and much, much more. You can earn money with limited listeners too. And the best thing of all, they will do this all for free. That's right, free. So go to Anchor FM today. The following episode of Cinema Recall, I would say, is rated PG to PG-13, which means that it is acceptable for all listeners, but parental guidance is still suggested, especially when listening to me. Alright, enjoy.
It's the Muppet Show!
It's time to put on makeup. It's time to dress up right. It's time to raise the curtain on the Muppet Show tonight.
Why do we always come here?
I guess we'll never know.
It's like a kind of torture
To have to watch the show. But now let's get me started. Why don't you get me started?
It's time to get things started
On the most sensational, inspirational, celebrational, motivational. This is what we call the Muppet Show.
Yeah. Oh, good. It looks much better. I think so. It's weird. I don't have the best setup at the moment, but it's surprising. It's doing much better than I thought it would. It's looking much better than it was. I did one the other day. I think I was recording in mono by accident on the other day, but stereo looks a lot nicer. And then I have a Skype recorder as well, just as a backup.
I have the same thing too.
Nice. The only caveat I have, I'm doing this while my daughter's napping, so which is fine. She hasn't fallen asleep yet. Might be a little while, but just in the event I got to run off real fast. I shouldn't have to. I'm the only one home, but everything should be absolutely fine. But just kids are always unpredictable.
All right, fair enough, man. Hello everybody. Welcome to Cinema Recall Podcast. For those of you out there, and as you know, we're going to be talking about all things Muppets. And for this episode, I brought back with me Chris Ravel of Let's Chat with Chris Ravel. Now, Chris, good sir, it's been a while since you've been on the podcast. And one thing I have to ask you about or talk to you about is all the updates that have happened. Because when you were last on our program, you were just basically doing your podcast from your apartment to your home, and now you've got a studio out in Rhode Island. And I know we talked about this before on your show, but can you tell our listeners just like a little bit update about how you got to get a studio? 'Cause that's really freaking awesome, man.
Yeah, it's been pretty. It's been what I would say is what the kids would call a game changer. What year did we record? Was that 2 years ago, 3 years ago?
I about 2 years ago, something like that. Yeah, it was definitely before you started, a studio. I mean, maybe it's on the cusp of that, but I know that when you were last on our show, you did not have the high life now.
No, I think I'm trying to remember if Felicity was even born. My daughter. I think this might have been a few years ago. Even it might have been before kids.
Yeah,
but it's definitely an old apartment. But yeah, so a lot has changed. There was a little bit of a lull in the podcast. The show took a kind of a unofficial hiatus, put out way less, but then kind of came back in full force now, which I'm very happy, getting episodes out a couple every other week now consistently. So up here in Rhode Island, we have a place called the What's Your Writers Club, and they have a podcast studio to it, and it's like a co-working space. It's co-working, and it's kind of like just like a hub for creatives, and they operate like as a co-working, but they also have a podcast studio, and they had followed me on Instagram or something, and when the podcast studio party that they were having, they had reached out and invited me, so I was like, all right, and I'm sure like this, I just have been doing the podcast in my bedroom for a very long time, and happily so, but then it's getting to that point where you need to start turning it into a little more, because like, as much as I love doing this, it's just so much more fun doing it with people, and they end up having very good prices, so I was able to join as a member, and now I'm able to I'm not there actually today. I wasn't able to make it there because I'm on solo kid duty, so to get there wasn't feasible for this day, but it's been incredible. I've tons of networking. I met a lot of people. So many people. I've gotten to guest on other podcasts. I've got to, just getting to do it in a studio, and it's right in downtown. And it's like the first time I went there, fun story, I went to the wrong building, and I walked into Senator Sheldon Whitehouse's office because it's like a gorgeous studio. They had I'm so happy. Got to have the people who run it come on my show, and they threw a listening party that I got to present at, which. I feel like if that studio never happened, the podcast might have ended, but this is almost like I've been kind of in this new phase where I'm taking it into a new place. We got merch, we got a website coming. I've teamed up with the producer. Hopefully, more of Let's Chat coming, and it's kind of on to the next phase, if you will.
Oh, I love it, man. That is really incredible because you started this shit just by yourself. And just trying to get things out there. You are an inspiration.
Oh, thank you. Yeah,
for other podcasters.
I started this with a co-host 6 years ago, and then within the first 20 episodes they left, which completely amicably. Which I understand because I tend to quit most stuff too. But this is one of those things I just didn't quit, and so yeah, I still can't figure it out. But I'm sure you feel the same way too, right? The more you do it, you just I get antsy if I don't record.
I get the same way too.
I need it.
Definitely, man. Well, thank you again for being on the show. As you can tell from the topic, we're going to talk about all things Muppets. We're not going to get into specific facts. We may here and there, but this is just about our love of the Muppets. So if you're expecting a show that's going to talk about the history of the movies, or Jim Henson as the director and as the features, and get into technical stuff about the Muppets, this is not going to be that episode. This is just our love of everything Muppets, from the shows to the movies and everything in between. But we got to do something really quick, Chris. I got to stop to play some quick ads from some other great podcast shows that help support and love us. So we're going to play those real quickly, and then we'll get back into the Muppets, all right?
Sounds good?
All right.
After these messages, we'll be right back.
Whatever.
Hey, this is Jason.
And this is Mary.
And we are the hosts of the comedy podcast Whatever with Jason Soto. It is a podcast unlike anything that's been done before.
Is that true?
Yes. Yes, it is.
Well, what makes us so different?
Well, how many podcasts do you know talk about meat for 5 minutes? Or talk about REM songs? Or true crime?
Well,
don't answer that last one.
Alright, I guess I see your point.
Plus, you get hilarious banter from us. Now tell us a podcast that does that.
I can only think of one. Whatever with Jason Soto, found on Podomatic, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and wherever podcasts can be found.
Greetings and salutations. This is Cage's Kiss, the ultimate Cage cast, where we discuss the movies and life of the national treasure, Nick Cage. My name is Linda, and every week I'll be joined by my brother Donnie and my best friend Adrian.
There are 3 of us here, and I can't help but notice that none of us are Nicolas Cage. Did nobody call him?
What? A Cage cast with no Nick Cage? What the shit's going on here?
No, instead of being Nicolas Cage, we're 3 Nicolas Cage experts, which is the next best thing.
I don't think we should admit to being experts.
Too late.
Unlike other Cage podcasts, we want you to participate. If you've seen Nick Cage out in the wild or have any other fun Nick Cage stories, we want to hear it. If you have any real-life dilemmas, we want you to send them in.
We are not experts at anything. We are not life coaches, and we are not in any way, shape, or form qualified to give you suggestions on life choices.
But Nick Cage is, and he's made hundreds of life choices.
We'll try to glean any wisdom we can from Nick Cage's character we're discussing that week to help you with your situation.
Seriously, I cannot stress enough just how much you should not take our advice.
But we're experts.
No, seriously, we're not experts.
Yes, but we will be reviewing his first acting gig as Nicholas Coppola, Best of Times, which features a young and very precious Crispin Glover.
And his work in Fast Times at Ridgemont High.
And his work in My Nightmares. Please subscribe and join us every week on iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, Podcoin, YouTube, or our website, cageskiss.com.
We're experts.
We're not experts.
Why are there so many songs about rainbows? And what's on the other side? Rainbows are visions, but only illusions. And rainbows have nothing to hide. So we've been told, and some choose to believe it. I know they're wrong, wait and see. Someday we'll find it, the rainbow connection, the lovers, the dreamers, and me.
All right, everybody, we are back, and as you can tell from that clip we played, we're talking about all things Muppets. That, of course, was the Rainbow Connection from the Muppet movie. Very famous song. And throughout this episode, folks, I'm going to be playing little 2-minute clips of songs from every Muppet movie, from the Muppet movie up and through until the 2011 version of the Muppets, and just little snippets here and there. So if we start talking for a little bit and then it cuts to a song, don't worry about it. That's just the way it's going to be going through this. I was actually trying to find clips of like audio clips here and there, but I'm like, nah, I'm going to stick to the songs because the songs are just so iconic. I have like a favorite.
They're so good. Like I'm not someone who would consider myself like a huge fan of like musical theater, but some Muppet movies are like Muppets Take Manhattan, for example, is literally like just like a Broadway musical, or like the old Muppet Show is like legit. Like, it's incredible. The music's it's out of this world.
I mean, even the opening scene of the Muppet movie, where you're seeing like Kermit's on a log right there, and he's just doing that little tune of the banjo.
Oh, as you're talking, I won't mess it up for everyone, but I just hear it in my head, that dun 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 dun, and then you get the like is it Dom DeLuise, I think, opens that movie with Kermit, or is it Carl Reiner?
Yeah, yep, Dom DeLuise is with them, but just the opening shot of that, I mean,
oh my God.
I mean, it's a beautiful song, and the way it's filmed, you're thinking, whoa, you wouldn't expect such a beautiful song to be made for a movie with puppets.
I know, and Paul Williams, who did the music for that, for anyone out there who's really interested, there's a great documentary I watched called Paul Williams Is Still Alive, because he, he's an interesting guy, but like did the Muppet music and then kind of disappeared for a long time, really fell into drugs and alcohol and had some hard times, and is now in recovery. And I remember him hearing on an episode of, at the time it was called Nerdist Podcast, it's since changed its name to ID10T, pre-Hardwick rape allegations, but it was a really good episode. I still recommend listening to. He sings Rainbow Connection in it, and he just tells these stories of him and his writing partner writing Rainbow Connection and not be able to figure it out, and him and like getting in arguments and stuff, and his wife's like, "What are you doing?" He's like, "Trying to write a song about the Rainbow Connection," and right there he's like, "That's it," and goes to the piano and then writes Rainbow Connection like one shot. I could be butchering that story, but it was just like incredible. I mean, the soundtrack, that song alone just gives me the chills.
Yeah.
And I didn't see that movie until I was in my like 30s or late 20s.
I'm kind of the same way too. I mean, I definitely saw it when I was younger, but for me, I think I saw The Great Muppet Caper because my folks recorded that movie on like TV a bunch of times. So it's weird when I go back and watch like Monty Python and you see like John Cleese, I'm like, oh, it's that guy from the Muppet movies or the Great Muppet Caper. He had no idea he had his own show.
Yeah, I mean, same with the Muppet movies and Muppets. Zero shows, but like it's so hard. I was doing a lot of digging, trying to think like what was like my memory of it, and I was thinking it must have been Muppet Babies the cartoon, which isn't that good, and I'll for which is fine. But I was thinking more deeply last night, and some of my strongest memories are now this is one of those things I don't know if my parents and grandparents actually liked it or they just watched it because I was with they watched it with me. I mean, outside of like Sesame Street, which I would at that time would not have known they were Muppets because I was a kid, but the original Muppet Show I used to watch at my grandparents a lot. And also Fraggle Rock, but I remember watching the BBC, the 1970s, like the variety show of the Muppets, and I remember I had this. And now both my grandparents have since passed, so it's a really special memory. But I remember watching the Muppet Show in their living room on that old. Remember the TVs used to have they were like a wood box around it.
Yes.
Like it's very like this is a very it would sound and their house of course looked like it was still from the 70s, even though this is like the 90s. And we were watching and Elton John was the guest, and I remember Kermit the Frog making a joke about not needing lights because his costume was so flashy, and watching my grandfather like just laugh almost until he cried. Like, so I was like, because I always loved Muppets, thinking that everyone did, and turns out I mean lots of people do, but I guess I like them a lot more than I realized.
No, I mean, the great thing about the Muppet Show, the original one, was all the great musical acts that were on there. I mean, like Blondie, you mentioned Elton John, Alice Cooper,
Mark Hamill.
I mean, yeah, I mean, a lot of
Richard Pryor, I think. I mean, and it's like, and it's really like it's odd because for the time it was a throwback, so now it's even more of a throwback. But it was really like a vaudevillian, it was like a vaudeville show, but with puppets. So there was something for like my grandparents were watching this with this nostalgic view for once, like the Rorschach comedians and that time of those things that did like the variety shows, which you don't really have like that. And then for me, it was just brand new. And I actually have the DVDs. I need to pull them out. They're just
I gotta watch those again too. I mean, because back at that time, it was really kind of interesting to have all these like big time rock acts, and pop stars and actors and everyone in between wanted to be on the Muppet Show.
And rock and roll is what, like 20, 30 years old at this time? Like rock and roll would be like what hip hop is today. Like rock and roll was still like the newer coming into its own music. It's still a newish genre. So to come on to like a show in London, it's fucking insane, like what they did. And I didn't know this, but the Muppets like started all the way back in the 50s.
Yeah, I know that they had some like guest spots here and there on certain shows. I know they're featured on Saturday Night Live at one time.
Yes.
Really cool thing, like right before the Muppet movie premiered, and I'm not sure if you knew this or not, but Kermit the Frog hosted the Tonight Show.
I did. I wasn't common knowledge, but yeah, I didn't realize how much of a prevalent of the culture they were. Like they were, like they really were made for adults. Like
they were, yeah.
Because this is Carson era, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Carson era Tonight Show, and that's when the Tonight Show. Like I had never been alive in this time, but like when people would watch the Carson, it was like there were three, like literally 3 channels, is what my dad would tell me about. So, like, that's a big deal. Like, that's a big fucking deal to, like, replace Johnny Carson with a puppet.
Yeah. I mean, and it's kind of funny, too. There's a sequence when Kermit brings along an animal trainer or a person that knows about animals. And the animal trainer is talking about the mating habits of frogs and pigs. And Miss Piggy is there. And he's asking questions about, like, the Kermit and Piggy's mating habits as well as the real animals, and it's just the stuff that's said there. The way they respond speaks to kind of an adult audience in a way, but it's kept clean. But just the whole concept of them responding, it was actually really kind of a cool thing. And you gotta keep in mind too, their pilot episode of the Muppet Show, the pilot episode was called "Sex and Violence."
Oh my god. If you go on YouTube, you could find like deleted scenes of Jim and Frank Oz just fucking around making Muppet Takes Manhattan. I think it's Muppet Movie. Any of them where they're just like disgustingly like humorous, dirty adults. Because they're grown men, But
Yeah.
ultimately, I'm sure they probably like toilet humor as much as I do, so they could make Hermit say fucking shit and stuff like that.
I know, right?
And
I love
it's
that.
hilarious.
That-
Yeah, and I mean, Sesame Street just turned 50, and that's like the. What's that?
No, go ahead. No, yeah. I said, oh, what? That's right. I'm like, 50 years old. Shoot. Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
Yeah, and that's like some of my earliest childhood memories is watching like Sesame Street, which then you found out, and like you could even be like someone like, oh, I have friends or I've known people in my life who would give me shit for loving the Muppets, but they were Star Wars fanatics and being like, well, Yoda's a Muppet. No, man, I'm like, it's literally. Like, not only is he like a Muppet, it's the same exact company who made that puppet, and Frank Oz is the puppeteer from.
It's so weird when I hear Frank Oz doing Yoda. It's like if he just put his pitch up just a little bit higher, Yoda becomes Miss Piggy. Just change.
I know.
Pitch.
It's fun. He might be like the real unsung hero of everything because he directed Muppet Caper.
Yep.
He's directed some of the movies because I just watched Muppet Caper the first time. It was really good.
Muppet Caper he did. He also directed the Muppets Take Manhattan.
That's the one. That was the one from childhood. I remember I remembered. I probably watched Treasure Island the most, but Muppets Take Manhattan is the one I love the most and holds up the most.
I think so too. I think that definitely was my first movie I watched was the Muppets Take Manhattan.
Together again. Gee, it's good to be together again. I just can't imagine that you've ever been gone. It's not starting over, it's just going on.
Together again. Now we're here and there's no need remembering when. 'Cause no feeling feels like that feeling. Together again.
Together again. Gee, it's good to be together again. I just can't imagine that you've ever been gone. It's not starting over, it's just going on. Together again. Now we're here and there's no need remembering when. 'Cause no feeling feels like that feeling. Together up, together up, together up. Together again. Together again.
And then later on, I got to see the Great Muppet Caper, and then finally the Muppet movie. And then years passed. I didn't get much into like the Muppet Christmas Carol, and the
I watch that every year.
I got into it more now, but when I was a kid growing up, I didn't much get into it. Mainly because I did not like the songs compared to what I like the songs from the Muppets Take Manhattan and the Muppet movie.
Sure.
And I get to it was like a totally different new company. This is when like Walt Disney was taking over the franchise, and it's good. But then the Muppets had kind of like a weird thing about different studios that they went with. So like for example, like the Muppets Take Manhattan, that was a TriStar Columbia feature. And then when Disney took over the property, they were able to get the rights from the Muppet movie and Great Muppet Caper, and then their other sequels, but they weren't able to hold the rights to the Muppet Takes Manhattan. And then while Muppets were at Disney for a little bit, they broke off from Disney to make the movie Muppets from Space. Do you remember that one?
That's the bad one, right?
Supposedly, so I actually kind of like Muppets from Space.
I don't recall it. But I remember it being. Remember hearing it was bad, but never seeing it.
It's basically the story of Muppets from Space. Is that it's a story about Gonzo finding out where he is. But for me, Muppets from Space is a throwback to kind of like little racier Muppets, like Muppets from back to the 70s and 80s. They can do a little bit more. You know,
sure.
They can do a little more drug innuendo jokes and everything like that, and they can sort of poke.
Oh my god, the amount of LSD jokes in Muppet movie is insane.
Yeah.
have you know also too, like it's funny to watch these things like these are like the 70s or these are kids or movies, but like there's a lot of like I don't know what came out first, but there's like jokes in the Muppet movie from the original one that like are very reminiscent of Spaceballs. And I don't know which came first, but like there's definitely, you could tell there's the Mel Brooks influence within the Muppet world. Like you could tell they had respect for each other.
Yeah, there's a lot of breaking of the fourth wall.
Yeah, they're in the Muppet movie, and there's the scene where they're like, Kermit, they're out in the desert, and Kermit goes to Dr. Teeth and Dr. Teeth and Electric Mayhem find him, like,
yep.
Well, how'd you find us? Well, we just looked at the script, and like he literally pulls out a script and reads, and even and another example is the Muppet Capers, where they're a hot air balloon, and they're literally just talking about the title credits, like, does anybody read these?
Yes, I
have. And like, oh my god, like that's. So, I know this is such a bad hot take, but the Muppets are really good. Like, it's almost unfair. And as much credit and people have love for them, I still don't think they're loved enough.
And that's, in the weird way, I kind of like the fact that they're not fully loved. And this is sort of a theme that I came across in the 2011 version of the Muppets, where they're trying to reboot their show.
That was so good, the Jason Segel one?
Yeah.
That was so good. I just watched that the other day.
I did too.
My wife and I, because I was just on another podcast called Old Roommates, where we revisited the Muppet movie. I know that's kind of how this happened. And so then after that, before you and I had talked, my wife was just like, I didn't see this one, and we were just in a mood for the Muppet movie. And there's a joke in that movie, which I swear to God holds as one of my favorite jokes, where he's like, where Walter doesn't believe that Turkey's a country. I fell out of my chair laughing.
Oh, gosh. Yes. I do remember that joke. But what I love the best about that Muppets from 2011 is the fact that they wanted to get a resurgence of the show. And everyone's saying that, well, no, you're not relevant anymore. You see this chart here? This is everything that's relevant, all right? And then over here, this far corner, that's where you guys are. And they just put the show together, and it actually kind of fails. And that's kind of a weird thing, especially for a movie released by Disney, having characters sort of fail on you. But that's what's kind of great. And Kermit says great thing, too. Is like, look, it doesn't matter if we fail or not, because we're a family. And we're just going to do what we like to do. Now, I'm sure before this movie came out and Jason Segel took, control of it, the Muppets had kind of a dive here and there.
Yeah, Disney didn't know what to do with it.
Yeah,
and I'm sure I don't know about you, but I definitely had a period where I loved the Muppets as a kid, and then it wasn't actually until because of this podcast I kind of rediscovered my love of it. But because I interviewed a couple times when his name's John Bristol. He's an independent filmmaker and puppeteer in Connecticut who runs Elmwood Productions. Okay. He actually made the very first horror puppet movie. Came out 5 years ago. Great guy. And around that time was when the Jim Henson biography came out. It kind of so I knew I was interviewing him because oh yeah, I forgot. And I just it was about 5 years ago. I got really. I mean, I'm literally talking to you, looking at a piece of Muppet fan art, which I'll post online, that I bought at Comic-Con 5 years ago. It really. And that movie too. That Jason Segel movie. I read an interview with Ted. It took him 7 years to make that movie because no one wanted to do it. The Muppets were dead in the water.
Yeah, I mean, so kind of. I think it was. Did the Muppet Treasure Island come out? Yeah, they came out after. I think it was. Muppet Christmas Carol. Anyway, then the Muppets from Space movie came out, and that did tank, and so no one really wanted to do anything with the Muppets for a while. But it wasn't. It wasn't until the Muppets made a music video for Queen's Bohemian Rhapsody.
Yes.
That really started the wheels going on the Muppets because that got a lot of hits, and then they did, I think, a music video with Weezer. And I think they did one.
And Ben Folds did one with the Fraggles. Did you remember that one?
Ben Folds?
Ben Folds 5?
I did not know about that. I thought OK Go did a.
They did as well, but Ben Folds did one with Fraggles because there was that period where because I think the kids run the company or had at one point. Is it Brian Henson?
Brian Henson, yes.
Yeah, and there's the daughter. I don't recall her name, but I think they were because I've known people or read stuff about it. Or I didn't know anyone who knew the Hensons, but that there was a period. I think there's a huge Disney just didn't do nothing with it and pissed off a lot of people.
Yeah, so they started to all this traction, and then you mentioned before Jason Segel him having a big thing to do with puppets because he used an element of puppets, and I think forgetting Sir Marshall. He did the whole thing about Dracula, the musical with
Never saw that movie.
puppet.
Sorry.
Oh, this movie's not that great, but there's a great sequence when he's using a puppet, like a puppet Dracula, and making like this puppet vampire musical thing right there. And apparently Disney saw that and thought, well, he could be a good guy to help maybe produce and bring the Muppets back to a new audience. And I'm grateful that he did, but also I think after that movie came out and it was a big success, I thought they really rushed too much into a sequel. But it's kind of the same. The Muppets
the
Most
prison
Wanted.
one. I remember at the time liking it. I haven't watched it again.
I should watch it again, but the first time I watched it, it's like because you don't have the return of Jason Segel, and I don't remember the guy's name, but I remember the show.
From Modern Family, Ty Burrell.
No, not Ty Burrell. I'm talking about Jason Segel, and then the guy. It's one of the composers from Flights of the Concorde. He did the songs.
Oh, Jermaine Fowler, and then I don't know the other guy's name, but I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, so they did all kind of like the songs for that new Muppet movie.
Everything is great, everything is grand. I got the whole wide world in the palm of my hand. Everything is perfect, it's falling into place. I can't seem to wipe this smile off my face. Life smells like a rose, with someone to paint, someone to pose. Life's a piece of cake, with someone to pedal, someone to break. Life is full of glee, with someone to saw, someone to see. Life's a happy song, when there's someone by my side to sing along. I've got everything that I need right in front of me. Nothing's stopping me, nothing that I can't be with you right here next to me.
Life's a piece of cake with someone to give
and someone to take.
Life's a piece of pie
with someone to wash, someone to dry.
Life's an easy road with someone beside you to share the load. Life is full of highs
with someone to stir
and someone to fry. Life's a leg of lamb
with someone there to lend a hand.
Life's a bunch of flowers
with someone to while away the hours.
Life's a fillet of fish. Hey!
Yes, it is. Life's a happy song when there's someone by your side to sing along.
And so they were not coming back for the new one. Neither was Jason Segel. And so the Muppets are kind of in this kind of not obviously they're not downward spiral. They're still relevant, and people who know who they are like them. But
well, Disney Plus has been in talks of making a show for like a while.
Oh, they are,
and then they keep. There seems to be like with Muppets, there's always like they're about to make something and it doesn't happen.
Oh, okay.
I still think the Disney Plus thing has happened. I think something just happened with it recently, but yeah, I know that's because I know that there's the. I mean, did you watch the Muppet ABC TV show?
I'm rewatching those right now, and
they're not that good.
Really, I watched the second episode, and I actually laughed out loud a few times.
Yeah, I remember. Maybe I have to go back. I remember at the time not liking it because it was like two like celebrities being exaggerated versions of themselves, but like they're being too nice. So it was like Kristen Chenoweth would come on and she wanted to have a who could build a house for charity competition where like it needed to be a little more snarky Larry Sanders-esque. Was my opinion.
Fair enough there. And the one thing I don't like about it though, I mean, I laughed at some of the jokes. It's just the whole concept of making it like an Office style ripoff right there. Do you remember Muppets Tonight?
Kind of.
Muppets Tonight was really kind of a cool thing because, alright, so the original The Muppet Show, it took place in a theater, they're doing all these vaudeville acts. Well, Muppets Tonight is set in a television studio, but they also had great guests in there too. Prince made an appearance on that show, Rick Moranis was on the show, Cindy Crawford, Sandra Bullock. It was actually pretty well done. Wasn't as good as the Muppet Show, but it was a nice little step. They
had that Muppet Cinderella thing. Did you ever see that? I didn't watch it. The Muppets had a lot of bad stuff as well. As I'm thinking about it.
Oh, I'm sure they had, but I don't really recall too much of it. You mentioned Muppet Babies earlier, and I remember loving that show when I was a kid. Watched it every Saturday morning. I haven't gone back to watch older episodes.
It's very hard to find, by the way.
Oh,
it's like I don't think you could buy it. I think you have to like illegally torrent it, or like maybe clips on YouTube.
I've been watching some episodes on YouTube here and there, but I just always like the fact of Muppet Babies just showing like real life clips of movies that I never saw before, and then when I watch those later on.
I always thought that Muppet Babies was like a cheap like grab, like make money off it. But I then watching the Muppet movie, you're like, oh, there's a whole sequence where they literally are babies.
Yeah.
Like they set that up. I mean, the Muppets are such an interesting concept because they can they're just these characters, and then they can put them in different things. Like they can do the Christmas Carol, which is a retelling. They can do their own adventures. They could do Cinderella. Like they could. I don't know. I like on a business and marketing standpoint, it's kind of genius.
Yeah. Well,
like they could do anything.
What I see whenever I watch anything about the Muppets, I never watch like behind the scenes footage about them, like Frank Oz and Richard Hunt and Jim Henson working the puppets, because for me the Muppets are just their own entity. They're like an actual real being person.
Sure.
And so even when I see like Kermit the Frog with Stephen Colbert talking about, holy crap, that's Kermit the Frog there, I'm not thinking that, oh, it's just a guy working a puppet. That's always going to be a real thing to me. And I never want that illusion to break. So that's just...
And I think... I'm sorry. Yeah, and I think they like notoriously will never explain how they do that famous bike scene.
Good.
Like, I mean, and maybe you could find it, but it's like they're not out there screaming about it. They're always like kind of hinting at it, because like if you think about it, there's literally a scene of Kermit riding a bicycle. I mean, I don't know if you've ever had the good fortune of going to New York.
No, I've not.
I know you live much farther away.
I'm in the Midwest, buddy.
Yeah. But I remember I was in New York with my good friend James a handful of years back, and we were in Central Park, and all of a sudden, like, I jump. I'm like, that's the staircase! And just start screaming about Muppets Take Manhattan. And then he goes like, I was really afraid of the puppets as a kid, and he never liked Muppets or anything. And I looked like it sucked to see the famous, iconic place where it was filmed with a person who just did not give a shit at all.
Oh, jeez. Oh, that's rough.
But I'm actually going to be going back there pretty soon.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Well, let's get into this, Chris, because we probably should. I want to talk about our favorite Muppet movies, shows, like... Starting back from, like, the Muppet movie, do you have, like, a favorite moment of that movie? Because I've got a couple, if you don't mind me sharing.
I have. I'll start with the Muppet movie specifically. Oh, sorry. I thought my phone was off. Never mind. Sorry about that. Oh, my God. I mean, I don't know. I mean, they're all my favorite scenes, but no, quite. In all honesty, when you talk about it, the first image will always come to my head. The joke that gets me, because it's such a dad joke, is when they say "take a left at the fork," and it's the Kermit and Frog and Fozzie moving right along. Like that will always get me.
Yes,
but it's. So I'm just laughing at it now. It's just I take a left at the fork in the road, and it pans out, and it's a literal fork in the road.
Could become a habit. Opportunity knocks once, let's reach out and grab it.
Yeah!
Together we'll nab it.
We'll hitchhike, bus, or yellow cabin.
Cabin?
Moving right along. Footloose and fancy free.
Getting there is half the fun, come share it with me.
Moving right along.
We'll learn to share the load.
We don't need a map to keep this show on the road.
Hey, the song is sounding better, Fozzie. Moving right along, we found a life on the highway.
And your way is my way.
So trust my navigation.
California, here we come high in the skyland.
Palm trees and warm sand.
Though sadly we just left Rhode Island.
We did what?
Just forget it. Moving right along.
Hey, LA, where have you gone?
Send someone to fetch us. We're in Saskatchewan.
Moving right along. You take it, you know best.
Hey, I've never seen the sun come up in the west.
I am such a sucker for that stuff. Or Or anytime they just like travel by, there's those on running jokes of that big monster that they meet at the car dealership that keeps running. And it's kind of a violent. Oh, I mean, honestly, the best. I don't know, the desert scene, the fact when Animal it turns into like a western and they're about to do a shootout. And Animal gets big. I mean, all of them. I mean, the last time I watched that movie, I had like taken very recently. It was like a couple weeks ago. I took a bunch of edibles. By the way, that movie is very good if you're high.
Really?
It's good if you're not high as well, but it's really funny.
Okay. Well, one of my favorite moments of this, and I'm sure you probably mentioned this as well, is when him and Piggy are at a restaurant, and Steve Martin is the waiter.
Oh my god, that kills me!
And he's just this really just kind of like, Steve Martin is playing this very disgruntled waiter. It just so when he went there, is like, yes, it's the best champagne from Idaho. And Kermit's like, it should be for 95 cents. And he has to open up the wine bottle with the bottle opener, not like a wine opener. And he goes, and Steve Martin to Kermit goes, do you want to smell the bottle cap? And he pours the wine, and he gives it to them. And Miss Piggy's like, I think he's supposed to taste it. And Steve Martin takes a sip of it, and then just like spits it out right away. Like, excellent choice, sir. And it's just brilliant.
And I think what's so great about that is that nobody ever thinks it's weird that they're Muppets. No. Seeing Fozzie's legs for the first time fucked with me so hard.
Oh God, yes.
When he's doing stand-up.
Yes. Oh, it's they do like whole like wide shots.
Yeah, and he's just standing, and it's just like whoa, like there's a real human element to those characters.
Oh, very much so. Definitely.
I love that song. Moving Right Along is one of my Alkaline. There's if anyone out there is listening, there's the Green album, which is like modern day. I forgot when it was made, but like Weezer and Paramore and Alkaline Trio. OK Go, they just do covers of Muppet songs, and Alkaline Trio, which happens to be one of my favorite bands of all time, does a Moving Right Along cover, and it's like. Oh. Yeah, and it's great, and it's like in their like punk rock style. It's like their style, but moving right along. So I can listen to like that music with my daughter, and it's like something I actually like.
Oh, jeez.
Which doesn't happen with little kids often.
Does your daughter like get into the Muppets at all? Has she seen any of the Muppet movies, or does she understand it?
No. So what I found at least for me, I think this is true for most parents with little kids. When you try to get them to like something, they hate it. So I love it so much, I'm never gonna ever. We have toys and stuff like that, and like but like I'm not gonna introduce. She has to find it out herself, because if I show it to her, she won't like it.
Do you like just say have like the TV that hey, let's just pop on a Muppet, something like that? Just say, do you ever just like this? I don't know what it is like now, but growing up in the past, there was no computers or internet, so we just had to watch whatever our parents had on.
Yeah, now it's all Disney Plus. If there's something I know that I think she'll like without being like, hey Felicity, watch this. Like I'll put on the TV, go in to get her when she's waking up, change her, do the morning routine, and then have her walk into the room when it's on and slowly kind of get interested in it. She likes it, and Sesame Street. Well, I'm so wrong. She loves Sesame Street. That was the first thing she ever loved. One of the first things she's ever loved was Elmo and Abby and all that stuff, and Big Bird. And then she doesn't really watch it, but she likes the toys and the books, and she loves the Sesame Street. I think all kids, it's the Sesame Street is really kind of the entry point for that
Sesame
stuff.
Street's the gateway drug.
It really is. And if you there, and then like most people, I didn't watch it for like 20 or 30 years. So like mostly we watched YouTube clips of some of the newer ones I would watch with her, and they're like really high production value and really big name celebrities. Then like there's one that she liked with Feist, and it was Feist. It's probably old, but instead of that song 1 2 3 4, but it was like they take like popular musicians and and they get to rewrite them.
Oh,
and then she liked Yo Gabba Gabba, which isn't Muppets, but obviously like if you don't. That's
I know Gabba Gabba because they had it on the Teen Teens on there doing a happy birthday song, and I really kind of like that.
What's that?
The Teen Teens. You know that band? You know the songs?
No.
They do that song like that's not my name. That's not my name. They call me Rachel, and I'm an actor. Yeah. That's the band.
Okay.
Or they do it. Shut up and let me go. Hey, bow, bow. Bow, 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 bow.
Okay, yeah.
So they were on Yo Gabba Gabba. So
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, Yo Gabba Gabba is great. Even as an adult, I like it. But yeah, so I guess for Sesame Street, so oddly enough, the reason like I ended up watching the Muppet movie, my old apartment years ago, um, our upstairs neighbor had a daughter who was 3 at the time, Daisy, and we were friends with the mom, and we were friends, and she'd come down and play in our apartment, and we became like, we all lived there for a long time, so we became friends and like very close with the mom and actually our friend Eric. We were actually, not to this day, we're all still friends, and so one of the times she was in our apartment, we were flipping on Netflix, and we put on the night. She must have been like 4. And we put on the original Muppet movie. I had never seen it, and she was 4 or 5, and she literally, I'd never seen a little. She sat down and watched the entire thing.
Oh wow!
And it was and at that age, I was like, that was actually probably the real thing that really started bringing me back into it. And she'd always go, "Baby Kermit," but full circle. A few months ago, we were invited to her 11th birthday party. So it's like. When she saw, and she remembered that too. She's like, "Do you remember when we watched the Muppets?"
Oh, really? Oh, cute.
And I was like, "Oh my god!" My heart was just like exploding in that moment. Like it was so sweet because we've all had moved out of that apartment since then.
Yeah.
God,
Wow.
Muppets, they're so
Just
great.
the way that everything did kind of come, full circle and everything like that with that movie. That's gosh, like is that like 20 years old? No, 80, 90 to the
1979.
1979. So it's about almost about 40 years old. Shoot.
Yeah, and it plays like it was made today. Because the Muppets are Muppets and they're not CGI, which I'm not anti special effects. They held up more. They look better. Like puppets always will look better. Maybe not always. Things have changed, but they just look better.
I fully agree with that, man. All right. So the only movie that I did not get a chance to rewatch, I've seen it before, was The Great Muppet Caper. This one has Charles Grodin, and I think Diana Rigg from the Avengers fame in there. She's in there as well.
Not the Avengers Marvel movie?
No, not the 60s Avengers. With Emma Peel. And so, Cash, if you don't know this, back to the 60s.
Thank you. I was trying to be like, oh yeah, of course. In the
60s, there was a show called The Avengers, where 2 spies from Britain solved crimes and everything like that. But anyways, Diana Rigg was one of the stars of The Avengers. She's featured in The Great Muppet Caper. This involves a jewelry heist. We didn't talk about the plot of the Muppet movie, which involves Kermit going to Hollywood to become a star, and he meets up with other Muppets. It's basically how the Muppet Show got started. That's the whole plot of the Muppet movie.
It's just a buddy. It's like a road trip.
It's like one of the best road trip movies out there.
Kind of like what Marvel is doing now is like you take your characters and then wrap them around a different theme. Is what the Muppets did. Like you just take the Muppets, make a buddy cop, then you make like a 1930s heist, like kind of not James Bond. It was
like a crime caper movie. It's a fun,
like a real
silly crime caper because Gonzo and Fozzie and Kermit are all these reporters. My favorite joke of the Great Muppet Caper is the fact that I think Kermit and Fozzie are twins. And they have a joke where they just trade hats and like, oh my gosh, I thought you were the same person. And just silly stuff like that. It's a frog and a bear, But
oh, I know. It's that, and that was the one I actually had never seen that until a couple of days ago. Thank you. Oh, by the way, thank you for turning me on to Voodoo.
Yeah. Voodoo because that's how I was able to see Muppets Take Manhattan, because as I mentioned before, Muppets Take Manhattan was Columbia's TriStar release, and so Disney connected the rights to that. Therefore, you have to find other ways to watch movies. And even though Voodoo has ads, that's okay, because I was able to see the movie for free again. Muppets Take Manhattan is probably still... I love the Muppet movie. The Muppet movie is still a classic, but my personal favorite has got to be Muppets Take Manhattan. And on an earlier episode of Cinema Recall, I had on many guests. We talked about our movie first, and we had a session about the first time a movie made us cry. And the Muppets Take Manhattan was the first time I had tears streaming down my face. And it was at the moment Actually, there's a couple of moments there, but it was the first part was when the Muppets were all saying goodbye, and they're doing that whole montage song there. Because I used to like watch episodes of the Muppets here and there, so I knew about and just seeing these characters go their separate ways. I was just like very sad the first time as a kid watching this, and then the other time I teared up during this movie was during the wedding sequence when Miss Piggy is singing to Kermit, "He'll make me happy," and doing those verses, and he's singing to her, "She'll make me happy," and I was like, oh my gosh, these are tears, but they're kind of like happy tears.
You make me happy each time I see him. He'll be the reason my heart can sing. He'll stand beside me and I'll have everything.
She'll make me happy each time I hold her, and I will follow where my heart may lead, and she'll be all I ever need.
Days go passing into years.
Years go passing day by day.
She'll make him happy now and forever.
Until forever, their love will grow. She only knows you'll make her happy. That's all she needs to know. They'll be so happy now and forever. Until forever, their love will grow.
I only know he'll make me happy. That's all I need to know.
And
Yeah.
I really hope that some couples use that song for their wedding.
I should have done that. I fucked up.
Do it for like an anniversary or something like that there too, because it's just a very really beautiful song how both couples are singing to each other about making each other happy, and the way the scene is framed and the lights in there. I was like, fuck, I should not get this fucking emotional for puppets. These are just fucking. They're actually probably just two middle-aged dudes kind of singing to each other in their voices.
I know,
but they have so much emotion and they believe in these characters. I think that's what makes the Muppets so great, is because the puppet performers believe in them as well as the human characters who act with the Muppets. They believe that they are real people. In fact, I know for a fact whenever a guest is on a show with the Muppets or has to do a scene with the Muppets, you have to relate to the character as themselves, as the Muppets, all right, as Miss Piggy or Fozzie or Gonzo, whatnot. You have to actually see them as that actual person, not the puppeteer, but the real person itself. And I just find that to be absolutely just an amazing thing. So.
Oh, I could. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, yeah. I mean, it's ridiculous how emotional they can make you.
It's really true because their eyes don't really move. Their eyes don't blink. But
but there's something. I think a lot of credit should go to the puppeteers, is because of like just the talent of voice acting that we get from these puppeteers. Is just incredible. I mean, here's the example. Like look at the Lion King, the new one, the Jon Favreau movie. Like what, billions of dollars, and it's the highest technology, and there's zero emotion because whatever reasons. And then you have the puppets that are just, they crack the code. Yeah. They just crack the code.
Definitely.
I don't know how. I don't understand when I look at Kermit. It wasn't until just this minute at 35 where I realized, oh yeah, they don't blink. I never thought that until this exact second.
I was watching a sequence when Kermit the Frog was hosting the Tonight Show, and Miss Piggy comes on, and Miss Piggy announced to the audience, like, "Hey, guess what, everybody? Me and Kermit are going to get engaged." And Kermit the Frog's like, "No, we're not getting engaged. What are you talking about?" And he goes from like being surprised to being kind of like frustrated, and it all has to do with the way his mouth moves and the corners of his mouth. And it's just little things like that, or like Miss Piggy when she gets angry, it's her things in her eyes kind of like just squint down a little bit, but her eyes don't actually blink.
And she shakes a little. She'll shake. She goes,
yeah.
We can't see me, but yeah. No, I mean they again such a level. They what's that word? Anthropomorphize.
Anthropomorphous. I think I'm not messing with
it. It's a tough one, but yeah, like they could like teach classes of how to teach kids emotion. I mean, and they do on Sesame Street, but like all right. I have a sidetrack, but you could stop me if it's too much. If have you ever seen the episode of the Muppet Show when they find out Jim Henson died in real life?
No, I have not.
Well, if you like crying, it's they address it on the show that they get a letter, and it literally it's like Kermit and all of them reading. It's like, sorry to hear that your friend Jim Henson died, and then like they all like make like Kermit's face, like I can see it. They literally all just the music. You see Kermit's mouth go in, and it really gets you. And if you want to really cry, watch. You could go on YouTube and you can watch Jim Henson's funeral, and Big Bird, Carol Spinney, who rest in peace, just passed. Does Big Bird does the eulogy?
Oh wow!
Oh my god!
I bet just Niagara Falls would just come streaming down right now.
Yeah.
I'll admit to check that out, but maybe a little bit later on. I don't know if I can handle that right now. But
when you're ready for it, but I mean to get real, like take this. I don't have to go too dark with it, but in all honesty, the first death I remember was Mr. Hooper from Sesame Street.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and then right around that time, I forgot how old I was. So he had died in the show, and in real life, I had a friend, my neighbor growing up, Colin, died of a rare lung disease. I think he was like the first or one of the. He was very like it was. I don't know if it was on the news, but he was one of the first people to die from this rare lung disease. But I remember like my mom telling me like Sesame Street was the thing that like was able to help me process it at like age 6 or whatever, because like Mr. Hooper died and like. And they talk to kids about death.
Yeah, I mean, I know that both. I remember watching Sesame Street and Mr. Rogers right around the same time because they played right before I went to kindergarten, and you got to learn things that don't get talked about too much right now, but they actually had a way of showing emotions that kids were going through, and they did it in a much more open and honest way, and I appreciate that very much. They put like kind of I'm not saying a humor spin on death, but they basically said it's okay to cry, and basically the Muppets would be like, the Muppets were like, hey, you're going through this turmoil in your life right now, things, are gonna seem rough a little bit, but hey, let's know that we're here for you. We actually care about you.
It's incredible.
Just let you do your thing, but always know that we're gonna be there to make you laugh, and it's okay to cry sometimes. So yeah.
Like to this day, like I work in like behavioral health, but I've read studies or like stories, and I've worked with people and like how like they're able to teach kids about their family member with autism, on the autism spectrum disorder because of I forgot it. There's a Muppet with autism. I forgot the name. It's not Zoe, but there's a, you know what I mean? Like, there's a generation of little kids who are just going to grow up knowing about, like, they just teach. They just introduced a homeless character on the Muppets. It's not political, but it's like, I don't know. It's kind of like, it is Muppets just embraces the diversity of what life is, that everyone and everything is different, and then the show is just like, we all love food and music.
Definitely.
And travel.
Yeah.
And, I didn't mean to
no,
derail
that's
you.
totally perfect.
It's just so meaningful. I mean, one of the best records I ever found a few years ago at a record fair was the Sesame Street Christmas Eve episode that I used to watch all the time, but it's like the soundtrack of it, and it was like I remember watching as a kid. I've never been able to find it since, or I haven't really looked. And I found it, and I listened to it when my daughter was first born, and just like Big Bird, I was having like flashbacks of Big Bird being stuck on the roof with snow falling, him and shivering, and then they all find him, and they sleep. And I was like holding. Mind everyone, I was not diagnosed with PTSD at this point, so maybe that's why I was getting so emotional, like holding my like brand new daughter, listening to the Sesame Streets, being like, "Oh my god!"
Oh.
But yeah, I mean, and then because sometimes you like stuff as a kid, and then you get older, and you're like, "Well, I liked it for nostalgic reasons." No, I mean, I obviously all that emotional bag stuff I talk about is a huge piece of why I love it, but it is really good.
Oh, definitely.
Like it's. Because there's a lot of stuff I loved that I got older. I was like, nah. But Muppets, no. I mean, I think I now love it more as a 35-year-old than I have ever.
I think so too. Yeah, I mean, I always had like a love of Muppets growing up as a kid, but I didn't really get all the kind of like inside jokes here and there, and a lot of the meta references that happen.
Yeah.
So I do agree with that. I'm in my 40s right now, and I think I love it even more now than I did back then. But Muppets have a way of doing that. You like them for different reasons. I think when I was a kid, I liked the songs a lot, and I liked the kind of the visual aspects of them. But then when you get older, you listen to their dialogue and their acting, and you like them for those reasons. So I do want to ask you this, Chris. Who are your favorite Muppets? Do you have like if you had to pick like a top 5 Muppets, who would they be?
I mean,
Or just general.
Kermit will always is gonna always come to mind because I feel like so much of my personality is based off of Kermit, and like how much I love Mike Schur and like Parks and Rec and all that stuff, and I see a lot of Kermit in Leslie Knope, but that like you can't break his optimism. Like, so I love, for that reason, but Kermit and Fozzie were always my favorite. Rizzo the Rat. Oh. Fuck, I love that motherfucker. Oh my god. I just, he's so funny.
Yeah.
So that's 3.
Him and Gonzo in the Muppet Christmas Carol as Charles Dickens.
I know.
Oh gosh. And the rat.
When he goes over the fence, you're an idiot.
Brilliant.
I don't know, but then it's like, I know that's a tough one. I got it. Beaker. Beaker will always be in there for me. I like Beaker. How do you do? I actually never really loved Miss Piggy, but I do a little.
I don't like Miss Piggy either, but I like the fact that she's there, and I like.
Yeah. I don't not want her to exist. She just wasn't the one I connected
Oh, totally.
with.
No, I understand that too. It was kind of a weird thing because her and Kermit's relationship is very kind of an odd one, but sort of the thing like the opposites attract sort of way. That's probably one that I didn't like about the Muppets, that Muppets TV show that happened on ABC was the fact that
because
they broke up.
Oh yes, because you can't separate Piggy and Kermit. Like you need there's Sonny and Cher. It's like if you made the Sonny and Cher show without Sonny and Cher.
No, it just would not work at all. For me, some of my favorite Muppets, my personality wise, I tend to go more towards Gonzo and Animal.
Oh, I love Gonzo. Animal.
That's because Animal's a drummer, and I'm a drummer. And
yep, I was gonna say that.
Gonzo's kind of this weird guy who says like weird things. I'm like, all right, that's me too. Basically, everyone.
He also might have sex with chickens, so we're not sure.
Or the whole thing, like opposites, kind of like attract sort of thing in a way. Like most of the girls I've dated have been a lot shorter than me. I don't know, so yeah, just
nice.
That weird thing.
Can we give a special shout out to Ralph the dog?
Ralph the dog, yes, my favorite.
Was it the Muppet movie, the original one, where they're or was it the reboot when like you skip over my story?
That was a reboot. That was a reboot. That was very great.
Oh,
why'd you skip over my story?
He's just sleeping. He's just sleeping in the hammock. Okay, like
classic. He goes back. Classic. Yes.
That's so. I don't. That's such good joke telling. Like, want to join the Muppets?
Yo.
Okay. Like a lesser movie wouldn't do that. Like that should have been a whole backstory, and it was just like he's just sleeping in a hammock.
It just comes back there. Yeah, Ralph the dog. Oh gosh, he's on the piano right there. I don't know what he reminds me of, but he reminds me of like a singer-songwriter from the 70s.
Yeah, like maybe like a influence of like a James Brown meets
that James Brown a little bit there, but maybe like James
who's the piano
Taylor
player?
or something like that type of like singer songwriter.
Or like Harry Connick. Like I'm trying to think of a good piano player. I can't think.
Harry
of
Connick Jr. is another one. That's a good one. But for me,
Elton
John, yeah, definitely. But I gotta mention something too about the Electric Mayhem, Dr. Teeth, and the Electric Mayhem.
Oh, and Janice deserves her own fucking series.
Janice is like my favorite member of that band. Remember the?
She's always high.
Do you remember the band Smashing Pumpkins?
Oh, one of the best albums ever made is the Melancholy Infinite Sadness.
The bassist of that band, Darcy, totally reminds me of Janice.
Oh my God, you're so right. Yeah.
Every time
I was just listening to them the other day, and I got into like a big kick on them. I think they're in a new commercial, and it made me like kind of like revisit that album.
Oh, no, okay. Oh, I know the song's been featured in other movies and whatnot there. Well, you got Dr. Teeth, who is a take on Dr. John.
What's that?
Dr. John is a singer from the 70s. If you look him up, if you hear Dr. John and the way he sounds, him and Dr. Teeth sound like the same type of person.
Have you seen the videos of like Dr. Teeth and Electric Mayhem performing live at I forgot what festival it was. It was in the last 5 or 10 years. Like you can go on YouTube, it's them performing live, and you don't see a single puppeteer. And I'm guessing they're not actually playing the instruments, but like, damn.
Kind of was that one band like the Gorillas? Remember Gorillas kind of doing something?
Yes. Oh yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Yeah, I do. I like them a lot, but it's like it's all them. It's all live. It's like they played at like Coachella or some shit, or like Reading and Leeds Festival, and like, oh my God, it's incredible.
Okay.
And the Dr. Teeth music is like good.
It's now in the Muppet movie. My favorite song of theirs like "Can You Picture That," which is like this.
Can you picture that? Yeah, it's fucking classic.
You're talking about like an LSD trip right there. I mean, the lyrics of that song were basically like really kind of like way out there, but it's just got this really nice groove to it.
Anybody's lover, everybody's brother. I wanna be your lifetime friend. Crazy as a rocket, nothing in my pocket. I keep it at the rainbow's end. I never think of money, I think of milk and honey. Grinning like a Cheshire cat. I focus on the pleasure, something I can treasure. Can you picture that? Can you picture that? Oh yeah! Hey Floyd, take a verse.
Let me take your picture, add it to the mixture. There it is, I got you now. Really nothing to it, anyone can do it. It's easy and we all know how. Now begins a changing, mental rearranging. Nothing's really where it's at.
Down the Eiffel Tower's holding up a flower. I gave it to a Texas cat.
Fact is, there's nothing out there you can't do. Yeah, even Santa Claus believes in you.
Break down the walls, begin, believe me, big guy.
Be a better drummer, be an up-and-comer. Can you picture that?
I can imagine the Electric Mayhem influencing a bunch of rock bands. And people be like, all right, yeah, we're gonna like...
Oh, yeah. Oh, I mean, because like Jim and Frank, these are like kind of like these Quaker hippie, like there's such a nod to counterculture of the era in the movies, but at least Dr. Teeth and Electric Mayhem are the place where they can kind of really go with it. Like Janice, the way she talks and her eyes are always shut a little bit, like
well,
it's
man.
always like a nod to that stuff.
Oh, my favorite joke of the Muppets, that TV series that came out recently, that Office ripoff. There's a point in the show where I forgot the character's name, but it's a bear and he's trying to sell Girl Scout cookies. And Tripper's like, "Why don't you try to sell it to the band now?" And the bear goes, "Yeah, that's right. They're high all the time." And Tripper says, "Yes, legally this time." And that, I don't know why, but that just made me laugh out.
Oh, that's so funny.
Because you imagine from the 70s right there, yeah, I mean, they were just getting probably stoned and high all the time too. But I think, well, this like best about the Muppets because it showed every different facet of American culture inside their shows. So you got, Miss Piggy, who's kind of vain and egotistical here and there. You have Scooter, who's kind of nervous.
Oh, Scooter! I
Scooter's
love
great.
Scooter.
You got Sam the Eagle, who is basically like Fox News, sports person right there.
Yeah.
Very conservative character. You got Gonzo, who just says weird things. Gonzo reminds me of like my guitar player of the band that I'm in called Scale of None. Just says this weird, random things outside the head. But yeah.
I love Gonzo so much.
Oh yes, I just some of the stuff that I'm not gonna try and quote it because I have to look up his actual quotes to get it right. Oh no, he's like in the Muppet movie. He tells Kermit like, "I'm gonna go to Bombay, India, to become a Hollywood star," and Kermit goes, "Why are you doing that? You just go to Hollywood." And Gonzo says, "Well, yeah, if you want to do it the easy way."
I don't even know what that means, and I still think it's
He's
hilarious.
going to go to Bombay. I was watching with friends of mine, and my friend Danelle was like, "Well, maybe he wanted to become a Bollywood star." And I say that's a really kind of a odd way to become a Hollywood star.
I know. I remember writing that down when I was preparing for my when I was going to go on Old Roommates to talk about that, and we all like that line. I'm like, what? Because they were a little bit older than I was, so I had to like ask them who some of the actors were. Because I did like that's a movie you'd see like cameos, and I'm like, I think they're famous at the time, but I didn't know who they were.
But Muppet movie you got Madeline Kahn. I remember Madeline Kahn from Clue.
Oh, okay, that's what she was from, and
then you
there's someone else was in
Steve
it.
Martin.
Richard Pryor. Is it Richard Pryor?
Richard
in it?
Pryor is in the Muppet movie. He's selling the balloons.
That's right. But it's incredible the people of the time who would roll through that stuff.
You got Mel Brooks in there. He plays the
yeah, that's right.
German scientist right there. Yeah.
I mean, and that's what a nod, right? Like for Mel Brooks to play a German scientist, like he's know, that's his ode to what, like Young Frankenstein maybe, or was it the Did he make the
he
producers?
He made producers as well as Young Frankenstein. Yeah. Yeah. Milton Berle's in there. Elliot Gould, Bob Hope, Carol Kane. Carol Kane, who. Carol Kane, you'll know her from the movie Scrooged. She plays the ghost of Christmas present. Remember Scrooged?
Oh,
she was also in the. She's also
it.
the Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt. She
That's
plays the
right.
neighbor.
Yep.
But she was the one every time when someone said something to Kermit about frauds, and he goes, "That's a myth, a myth," and then a lady pops out going, "Yes, no, not myth, a myth." And do you ever talk about where they have like a lady just pop up in the corner of the screen going, "Yes," and I know. Yeah, but always good people and all their features. I know you talked briefly about the music of Paul Williams, and I only know Paul Williams from the stuff he did with the Muppets, a movie called The Phantom of the Paradise, and Daft Punk.
Daft Punk
Yeah, he did songs for their Random Access Memories.
Wow.
He did a song with them called Touch. That's
I mean, so this is like the thing about the Muppets is like I know we're sticking to like Muppets, thankfully, but like you could branch off into Star Wars, Labyrinth. What was the Otter Jug Band, Fraggle Rock? The company the Muppet umbrella it touches so much of culture without even realizing it. Like even like the new Star Wars movies, like I believe it's still Henson Productions.
Yeah, they still do puppet work with that Star Wars. I recently rewatched The Dark Crystal.
That's the movie I was thinking. Yes,
which is a wholly puppet movie. Like the Muppet movie and all that stuff, they have like human characters interacting with the Muppets. But The Dark Crystal is a fully featured film with nothing but puppets in it. So really kind of a dark storyline. It's just creepy and weird. And I remember seeing those bird-like creatures. I forgot what they're called. And just having nightmares about those really weird, twisted things that their skin kind of melting in a way. Yeah, it just. And then of course Labyrinth, because they had my first cinematic crush. Actually, there's two.
David Bowie.
No, that too. Come on, no, he's everybody's first cinematic crushes. Yeah, all right.
Oh, I know. I actually never saw.
There's Labyrinth there with
so,
Jennifer
sorry.
Connelly. Oh gosh, I had a huge crush on Jennifer Connelly back then. Her and Leah Thompson were probably my cinematic crushes back then. Yeah,
Did you lose your shit when Unwritable Rant had Leia Thompson on?
a little bit. Yeah,
You're like, what? Of course you
Yeah,
did, but good
I
for
know,
you.
yeah.
That's so cool. I love David and Juliet so
they're
much.
so great. Yes, gotta love that.
Kindest human beings in the
I
world.
know they are indeed. Do you have like a favorite song? That we talked about the characters of the Muppets.
It's moving right along.
Moving right along.
Okay. I love all the music, but I just love it, and for me with music, the true test of one thing I think I have a theory, like a good song works when it can be covered well.
Okay.
Because then you know what I mean, like that you know what I, like so like moving right along. I like the Alkaline Trio version. I like the original version. I like all the other ones. Like it's just a good song. Like it's just I don't know. I don't know. There's something about it. Like it's such a. I use it in daily life sometimes. Like, all right, moving right along, and like I'm always referring to it in my head, and then I just can't stop singing the whole song in my head.
It's the banter that both Kermit and Fozzie are having with each other with their lyrics. I mean,
oh my god,
it's like a comedy.
It's like palm trees and sky, land. We just left Rhode Island. We did what? Never mind. Moving right along. Dung diddy dung diddy dung diddy. Yeah, it's like a Bob
exactly,
Hope movie.
Bob Hope did a bunch of those road movies where he would sing about traveling with his co-star, and they always have this like kind of riffs on each other with the song, like kind of jokes within that song. It's just really constructed. It's got a really great melody. Oh no, I totally love that one. I gotta say,
I mean, I love all of them, but even the newer ones, they have a song from the Muppet reboot, and it's called. They make it's called I forget, but it's like it's called We're Doing a Sequel, and they literally and they predict the future because they actually have a line. They go, but everyone knows the sequel's not as quite as good, and then it's like it won't be as bad as The Godfather 3. And one line they go, well, waiting around for the studios for Tom Hanks to make Toy Story 4. And this was before Toy Story 4 even like was a thing. So like they predicted future. So even the music for the new ones is great. Like it's really good. I listened to it with Felicity. You asked earlier, but yeah, with Felicity, I listened to a lot of Muppet music with her. Like I have like a Spotify playlist that I make, and that like so when we're playing, we'll put on music, and that comes on a lot.
The opening song for the Muppets 2011 version, everything is great, everything is grand, I got the whole wide world in the palm of my hand.
Oh, that was so good. And you know what's so good about Muppets, which a thing I don't like about musicals often, but with the Muppets, the music actually is moving the story forward. It's not like a pause break to have a song.
No, it's not a pause
reason.
break, just we're gonna have a song there. It does, it's integral to the plot, but it's actually just really good songwriting. So one of my favorite songs from all the Muppet movies. I mean, I'm a big fan of, like I mentioned, Rainbow Connection, but it happens when you see the Muppet Babies and the Muppets Take Manhattan, and Miss Piggy is singing to that song, I'm Always Gonna Love You. It's got this 1960s... like Dana Ross and the Supremes type of vibe, like girl groups, Ryan Spector, that type of vibe with that sequence, and the babies doing that mama, dada, cuckoo, chihuahua, yeah, just... that.
Okay, yeah, you're right. All right, that's my favorite. That's my real favorite. As you're saying that, I was like, oh, that's a good
That's
song.
just a really, really good song, and I was like putting together clips of the show, musical clips, and I listened to that song. I'm like, God damn, that's a really, really well established song. I mean, it's got build up, it's got great lyrics, got bridge. It's just a very well constructed song, and it's essentially it is a kid song, but it's so well done that I can just put it onto a playlist and play it in front of my friends, and they will totally get into it and love it. In fact, I think I'm gonna have my band do like a punk rock cover of that song.
I was kind of hoping you were going to say that, end with that, because I want to hear that, because, oh my god, please, 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 please do that. Yeah, that would be, because that's such a good, like, you're right, it's very Phil Spector-y. It's very, like, that, the
Ron,
Ronettes or whatever.
that 60s girl group type of style right there. It's, just brilliant. My other favorite...
Talk about a horrible person, huh?
Well, my other favorite song, and it's kind of a small one too, it happens in... I think there's a couple in that Muppet reboot movie. We mentioned the opening song. I like the sequence when Amy Adams and Miss Piggy are doing a song all about partying by themselves.
Oh, the Me Party, the party one?
I look around, and once again I'm on my own. My man in here, he's gone and done me wrong. No one's gonna stop this girl from having fun. I throw my hands up high and have a party for one. I'm having a me party, a party by myself. A me party, I don't need nobody else. I'm having a me party, I'm the first and last to show. There's no one at this party that I don't already know.
I'm not gonna sit around by myself and wait for you. Haven't you heard? One is the new two. I'm gonna make a scene, I'm gonna make a fuss. Tonight I'm gonna celebrate with just the one of us. I'm having a me party, I don't need no invitation. A me party, I just want the conversation. Me party, only number less than two. You do the math, Brock, it means I don't need you. I'm having a me party.
Haven't I seen you here before?
A me party,
I'm the last one on the dance floor. A party just for one. Me party, it's a summer party roll. Me party, I'm such good company. A me party, I'll save the last dance for me.
That's a really good song. Like, and for a human to have a moment of song in a Muppet movie is not always like how it works. So like it doesn't always work so great. But that was like, yeah, I agree. It was great. I love that one.
Matter Muppet, another good one.
I would like that more, but I just hate Jim Parsons so much.
Okay, see, I didn't mind Jim Parsons because he plays us.
I still love that. I think it's still a good song. I just don't like him as an which is not fair. I've actually never watched The Big Bang Theory. I just decided I hated it and then never watched it. So I'm aware I'm bringing
I'm
my own
not a
baggage to something
fan.
that doesn't exist.
I totally understand. I'm not a big fan of The Big Bang Theory. I liked it for a little bit, but I started not liking it when they started having love interests. Because it didn't really match their characters. Like,
Sure.
I just felt like, oh, you're just... but I don't want to get more into that because we can do a whole show about Big Bang Theory, and I'm not doing that. So it's all about Muppets, but having Walter see himself as like this human guy.
I thought the Walter stuff was really well done.
I was too. I was very. I like the fact too that it was about that character trying to find out the Muppets trying to find out more about himself and everything. Yeah.
Those movies are just like they work on so many fucking levels, right? They're just like about identity and just like they're all such human and adult themes that like it's just like I don't feel like not feeling like you belong, and it's just and the Muppets they're for everyone. I forgot the name of it. What's the last song they sing? Is it Muppet Melodies and the Muppets Take Manhattan when they get the theater together and they put on the show? That one gets me
together again. Gee, it must be great together again. Yeah.
Yeah. And that, I guess that's a theme within Muppets. Kermit gets amnesia and loses his memory and like loses his identity and like, it's deep shit.
You just remind me of something too. When Kermit the Frog loses his memory. Not that has, but a thing about Muppets Take Manhattan that I forgot to mention was that girl Jenny. That was another one of my crushes back when I was a kid. I
Yeah.
thought she was, and I got her confused with this other actor from the '80s who was in a movie called The Stepfather. When I grew up, I was watching weird things. I was watching things about the Muppets, and then I watched with my folks a movie called The Stepfather about a serial killer who marries into a family and that the family isn't perfect. He kills them and then moves on to another family. So I was like watching a lot of like these weird horror movies with my parents, my sister, and then watching like these family fairs like the Muppets and Disney and all that stuff. And sometimes I see an actor in one movie and I see someone that looks familiar to them. And another movie, I'm thinking it's the same actor, but it's not. And so it's just, oh, my childhood's weird, like finding different shows and movies. Like, hey, I've seen this actor before, but she was in a horror movie, and now she's in this kids movie, and having everything just be all.
And do you ever see there's a Simpsons episode where they make fun of the Muppets? Like, it's one of my favorite things about the Simpsons, but it's like, oh, what's a Muppet? Well, it's not quite a puppet. And it's with Troy McClure. Oh, it's great.
Miss Troy McClure's with Miss Piggy. I think I remember that talking about that.
It's like they're showing one of the movies at school. They're watching like the Muppets, like Cinderella or something.
Oh, yes.
It's classic.
Yeah, it's great.
Classic.
Well, I don't know, man. We're getting down to the hour mark right here, and I've got nothing really else to say about the Muppets that we haven't covered before. We covered the songs, and the characters, and the movies and whatnot. There, do you have like a Muppet movie that you do you have like a favorite Muppet movie? I don't know if we actually confirmed this for sure, but
I would say it would up until maybe a few years ago. It would always been Muppets Take Manhattan was my favorite, but I think I don't know. I think the Muppet movie is the one I go back to the most.
yeah,
now.
okay. Fair enough there. I would still have the same, and these are all really great movies, so I'm not gonna put one in front of the other one. But I gotta go with probably Muppets Take Manhattan as like my favorite,
Yeah, and
then the Muppet movie, then Muppets Christmas Carol, and then maybe the Muppet 2011 version, and then Muppets from Space. But I can switch these around everywhere. I will say this.
Yeah,
if you have not seen Muppets from Space, I would say give it a shot. It's not as great.
I'll try to find it because I haven't seen it anywhere. It's not on Disney Plus.
I know it's not going to be on Disney Plus. That was like this, it was the same issue with Muppets Take Manhattan. It was done with a different studio.
Oh,
and so because this Muppets had a little brief hiatus between Muppets Treasure Island and then the Muppets 2011 version. So that they were going through different studios, so they went back and made a movie with Columbia TriStar, and that movie tanked, and so it was like a long time, and then, like I said before, Muppets started appearing on these different music videos and YouTube clips. I think the internet has been a big push for the Muppets. But I do have like one final question to ask you, Chris. You there? Okay,
sorry, listen.
Final question for you, Chris. Do you think the Muppets will have a resurgence again?
Oh, absolutely. I don't think it ever really went away. There's like, I think the Disney Plus, I hope Disney is able to, and maybe it doesn't need to exist as a movie anymore. Things are so different. Like, it doesn't make sense financially to own this property. Like, they can make so many Disney Pluses or that. I mean, what they've done with the YouTube channel alone, like there's just so many. So what they, I mean, even the Muppet Babies they rebooted that. I don't watch it because I'm not. It's not for me. But so like I feel like, yeah, I think it's gonna be like there. We will be an ebb and flow. I hope Disney will get their shit together. And yeah, absolutely. I think it's just because, at least on a business, not even just creatively, but the business side of it, you could do anything with it. Like, I mean, it is the most prime thing for franchise ever.
Oh, totally.
Like, they could just they could just kind of like do what the Lego movie did, or like they could just. I mean, I would pay money if you just did a Marvel remake of movies of just with Muppets in them. Like,
oh my God.
Like there's just enough people out there.
All these reboots and remakes coming out. Like, I heard they're coming out with the Little Shop of Horrors remake and a Clue remake. Do that shit with the Muppets.
Yeah, and I so I wonder if it's. I mean, I think you are definitely seeing a return to puppetry, especially with the advancement with CGI, and Abrams is really big into that as well, which is really great to see. It's just I just don't think it will ever go. I mean, I guess it never does. It depends on the stage of your life where you're at. Like when you have little kids, you're watching Sesame Street, and maybe you have periods where you go away. But yeah, I don't know if you need the movie. I thought the last movie was great, but maybe in this new era, I think what happened, unfortunately for the Muppets, is they kind of fell into that world where like they're like that. The film industry has changed, where they used to be like the $20 million movies, like the mid budget, like the buddy cop comedy, like the movie, like a Lethal Weapon, like whatever. And the Muppets are never going to make $1 billion, but they don't need to cost $1 billion. But that stuff now is like on Netflix, so I guess it's just in this weird business holding where it's just Disney needs to really get their shit together. Oh, I mean, by the way, did we forget? I take it all back. Baby Yoda.
Oh,
okay. They're the most popular thing in the world.
I forgot that is a Muppet. That is a puppet made by Jim. Okay, all right.
I'm talking
about the actual, characters like Gonzo and Miss Piggy and all that Swedish Chef, like that type of characters. Yeah, I know that Jim Henson and Puppeteer, he's going to be great and set for a long time. That company is going to be making movies and working on stuff for a long time to come. And you're right, too. I think that the Muppets will still have relevance, but just maybe not right away. It still hasn't gone away, but it'll still be there.
Yeah, well, I hope they kind of continue with the movies. I'm not sure why they don't.
I think I want them to kind of do something like small, like start off kind of small, get the taste of the Muppets back in there. I don't like the fact of Muppets trying to sell commercial stuff. I don't think they should do that, or sell like insurance. They're doing the portal thing. The whole Muppets doing the whole portal thing. No, get away from that. Don't try to sell any advertisements.
I'm really surprised they haven't redone like the Muppet Show traditionally. Like it just would make so much sense. And we forgot to bring up Stadler and Waldorf.
Oh gosh,
the old men
yes.
I mean, I don't know. It seems like there's just too much gold they're sitting on, and I hope they don't even need to reboot it. They can just make another Muppet movie. Like no one gives a shit. It's not like, you know what I mean. It's not like you need to like really explain much. And actually, there's no explanation of why they exist.
It would be great to have Waldorf and Statler made like a movie critic thing, like a Siskel and Ebert type of thing, where they review movies.
Yes.
And because they can comment on how bad things, even if something's really good, they'll still say it's bad, because it would take the piss out of the whole film criticism thing in a way, where it kind of sticks to people who get too serious about film criticism that doesn't really need to be. And I would just love to have them comment on a movie. It's like, what was the best thing about it? The way it ended. Oh, they actually have much better jokes than I do, so yeah, I would love that shit a lot.
I hope the TV show, like, I just hope they don't do that thing where they have to like feel the need to reboot it, because like they did the whole thing with Jason Segel. We got the origin, then we got the Muppet prison one, and they weren't connected, which is totally fine. So I'm like, we don't need to. They don't have to all connect. Like they can just be separate movies.
Yes.
Like there's not like a continuity with it. Like something happens in one Muppet movie. It's not like Marvel, which I love. It's just like they can just do whatever the fuck they want.
But the right thing too, because taking something that has like a property, something they know. They talk about Star Wars, remaking Muppets Star Wars, like that would be just great. I mean, we already had a reboot with The Force Awakens. Come on, just take the same story of New Hope, just put Muppets in there.
Yeah. Oh my God, just all Yodas. My guess is once the baby, if they do this in Mandalorian, which it kind of seems as they're hinting, if they ever end up at the, it seems like they're leading up to this, but if they end up on the planet with Baby Yoda, we'll see lots of Baby Yodas, which I can't see why they wouldn't. I bet that might be the turn for the Muppet push.
Maybe.
Because now you're getting like the generation that's my age, like, you know, and younger, who are now going to start showing to their kids. And I mean, everything else is being rebooted. Maybe that was the problem. They were just a little too early to the reboot franchise.
I think so. Yeah, you're right, because we didn't start getting much reboots back in 2011. So who knows? The future will be wide up in the sky for the Muppets right there. We actually had some comments about Muppets on
great.
our show. So I want to read these really quickly before we go, and I'm glad to clear this now as you wrote all these down. So I'm reading. These are from Twitter. All right, and so I asked people from Twitter about their favorite Muppet moments there. Okay, so from Twitter, at Rob DeRich, he writes, "Not sure if it counts as a feature, but Emmett Otter's Jug Band Christmas by a mile." And then
Oh, that one's weird. Yeah, that's like a real cult
I
classic.
have not seen that one. I heard other people talking about it on other podcasts. I know Elwood Jones and I want to say, oh gosh, I'm gonna Daniel Lackey from TV Good Sleep Bad talked about that feature and how it's kind of like dark and a little bit sad at sometimes. But I'll check that out. He also mentions too. He says largely thanks to a sweet story by Paul Williams. Um, at Tim underscore cinema, he writes, "I watch The Muppet Christmas Carol every December. It's one of my favorite movies of all time. I had a lot of time for The Muppets Treasure Island and Jason Segel's 2011 installment." Well, thank you very much, Tim. Uh, at Ask Jeanette writes, "Muppets from Space, Christmas Carol, Muppet Movie, and then Muppets Take Manhattan. I know there's more, but this is the order in which I would watch." Fair enough. Um, Very good one. At Parents Night, Parents Night in podcast. "I love all things Muppets. I'll be listening all Muppets all day." So thank you very much.
Shout
Lily
out.
Spellman at underscore lovely underscore Lily. My favorite memory is watching the Muppets repeats nightly, and at the end of it, my gran would turn and tell me it was time for the blanket show and put me to bed. Ha ha ha.
Aw. See?
I always used to love and fear the Muppets because of this. Also, flinging our Kermit plush down the hall and stairs, his arm and legs flopping wildly, and his face forever frozen in joy and terror. He was our football, and we loved him. So thank you. Thank you for everyone that made, comments on our Twitter page, which is at cinema underscore recall. Yeah, thank you for everyone that said that to us. Appreciate that very much. But I think we're going to start to close things out right now. Again, Chris, thank you so much for being on here with us. Anything new coming up with Let's Chat?
Well, thank you first off for having me. Huge fan of the show, and you were so helpful. If anyone doesn't know, I had a recent experience where we had a studio booked, and the guest was going to come on. They missed their flight home, and so I had this period. I was like, I don't know. Let's just see if I could, instead of canceling, let's see if I could fill a spot. So I reached out to everyone. I, started going through a list, and you were the first person to be like, sure, let's do it. And it was it was less than 24-hour notice, and at 2 p.m, something weird. And you're like, sure, let's do it.
Rock and roll.
And it was great. And so it's been, thank you for that. But yeah, we're going to be rolling out some cool stuff, merch, websites coming. The merch is pretty cool. Some cool photo shoots coming up. Some kind of weird shit. I can't. What else are we doing? And a lot of giveaways. That's been the new thing. I know people are super into the giveaways, but we've got another. We'll be having some more coming up too, and more episodes. You can listen to the Vern, and you'll obviously be back on. But yeah, it's hoping to keep going and have some really fun. Just kind of trying to take it to that next level, which whatever that means, and I'm starting to build a little team around it because it turns out that I can only do so much, and having a team has been just wonderful. So yeah, you can follow us on at Let's Chat Podcast on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter are the most active, and YouTube, and anywhere you find podcasts.
That is amazing. Like I said before, I wanted to have you back on a show to talk with me. I was trying to find the right topic to discuss about. And
it's funny because last time we talked about turtles, and so I'm like, something about me with puppets, huh?
You mentioned on Twitter, hey, what about Muppets? I'm like, that is freaking brilliant. I would never thought about that before, but it was so great to have us reminisce about the Muppets and everything. You're a great guest. I enjoyed immensely being on our show, and I'm so thankful that you're coming back on our episodes to talk about something that we both love. I'm definitely going to have you back on later on. A couple of house cleaning things here for Cinema Recall Podcast. So we are officially back. I took a little hiatus because I took on a contract job, but that contract job fell through, and so I'm back on unemployment and just trying to find new work. I got let go from my job, my contract job, the day before Valentine's Day.
I'm so sorry.
And it was just really a weird situation. Not so much weird, the fact that I got hired on for a job and they promised me a bonus, and then they let me go without any reason why I got let go, because I got the job through a temp agency, and I know it has to do with numbers, because we were not.
No, they didn't want to pay you a bonus.
Exactly.
It's called. It's called capitalism.
Yeah, I'll talk about this later on here. But so, anyways, getting back to what I was saying right now, we're coming back now fully for episodes, but I'm only gonna post probably one episode a week to 2 weeks. Some weeks I'm gonna have 2 episodes. Some weeks it's gonna be just 1 episode, or an episode every 2 weeks. It's just when I can get to an episode, because I'm planning on having more guests. I've got reached out from other guests on there. So yeah, we'll be back for episodes, but they're just gonna happen either every week or every other week. But we're still, active on the social media. Our Instagram is Cinema Recall Podcast, because I'm just kind of doing all this stuff for myself. But you have influenced me, Chris, to go ahead and try to find maybe a studio here in the Midwest and find time for those, because that's something. Cause I want to build this up even more, and you've been a big helper in supporting our show.
Oh, thanks, man.
And share and post everything like that. I greatly appreciate that very much, man.
You've been one of my bigger supporters, and it's what a great community of people that we've gotten to meet that we never would meet, because we're in different parts of the country, and then I'm just so inspired by everyone I've gotten to come in contact. Do you still have that? You said yes.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you. It's like this weird thing where you have to be hyper confident but also humble. I'm really fucking good at this, but I'm also thank you so much. No, but I truly thank you. Huge fan, and it's been so great to get. Now it's been it's weird. I have all these friends through podcasting that I've never actually met in real life that I probably talk to more than my actual friends.
I'm gonna change that once I get things established with the new job and everything like that. I'm gonna get out to see everyone.
We'll do one in person.
Exactly. Oh, that'd be so cool doing the studios and actually.
Well, we'll have to find a convention, something in New York, and we'll go visit the sites of where they film Muppets Take
God, hell yeah. Okay. I love that. All right, we're gonna close on that moment right there. Going to New York to see all the landmarks from the Muppets Take Manhattan. I love it. Again, thank you all for listening. You can find all episodes through Stitcher, Anchor, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. Just search for Cinema Recall Podcast. I love you all, and I will see you all later on.
Life's like a movie, write your own ending. Keep believing, keep pretending. We've done just what we've set out to do. Thanks to the lovers, the dreamers,